People, I'm not a Nintendo YouTuber. I saw that in the comments section yesterday. I specifically told you, do not say I'm a Nintendo YouTuber, yet some of you thought it would be haha, lol, funny to put that in the comments section. Look, I am a new hardware enthusiast. When information starts piling up about new hardware, I'm going to talk about it. You could call me a new hardware YouTuber, you could call me the emulation king, but don't call me a Nintendo YouTuber. But yesterday we did, of course, talk about the floodgates opening for Nintendo Switch 2 reports coming to us from both Video Games Chronicle and Eurogamer, corroborating, saying that they've heard what the other has heard about a behind the closed doors segment at Gamescom 2023 in which the Nintendo Switch 2 was showcased. Now, like I said, I got a video about that up yesterday. Make sure you guys check that out if you have not yet. I'll briefly summarize some of the talking points of that though for this video because it actually parlays into this other information that we have, because we have some more stuff coming out. Now this is from Universo Nintendo's editor-in-chief. Now, admittedly, I am not super familiar with Universo Nintendo. A lot of people seem to be latching onto them for basically different sorts of upcoming leaks and rumors and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of videos and tweets made about them, but I decided to look into their history to see if they have any sort of track record. And honestly, the only thing that really popped up for me was the fact that they said that Mario and Rabbids 2 was a thing. And like, to me, that's just kind of a good guesstimation. Like, I don't foresee that as like a big quote unquote leak. So I'm kind of taking this information with a grain of salt, and you'll see why as we kind of go along and talk about what they've been saying. Now, I could be wrong on that. If they've been right about other stuff, feel free to let me know in the comments section down below. I just did some basic digging around. Really, that was all I could find, and that they said that there's going to be a Nintendo Direct next week. No shit, Sherlock. I think everyone knows that there's going to be a Direct next week. It just makes sense. But Universo Nintendo basically was piggybacking off of the Video Games Chronicle report that we covered in yesterday's video and gave some own insight into that sort of thing as far as what they have heard from various developers. Now, in yesterday's video, we of course talked about the fact that this system was essentially being showcased with two different games: an enhanced version of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, yes, Breath of the Wild, not Tears of the Kingdom, with a higher frame rate and a higher visual resolution in the game. And then the other thing was the Matrix demo that we had gotten earlier back in, like, I think it was 2021 for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Now, this, of course, is an Unreal Engine 5 demo. We, of course, talked about the fact that, hey, Unreal Engine 5 works on the current Nintendo Switch, so, you know, like, yes, you can make it work. Now, supposedly, it was of, you know, PS5 and Xbox Series visual fidelity. You know, I'm kind of a little bit skeptical about that, just because this is Nintendo we're talking about here. They're not always at the innovation of cutting edge graphics technology, and it works for them because with cutting edge graphics technology, you of course have cutting edge prices. There's a reason why the PlayStation 5 was $500 upon launch and still is. There's a reason why the Xbox Series X is also $500, because they're expensive to manufacture. And I don't really foresee Nintendo wanting to get into that sort of war, but allegedly some of this was because of the DLSS upscaling technology. Like I said, that's a brief summary of yesterday's video, but it plays a big role in today's video, so make sure you check out yesterday's video if you haven't yet. But we'll be going to My Nintendo News, for they have done some translation of what is happening with this, and this is from Universo Nintendo's editor-in-chief. Like I said, they've evidently had a number of leaks correct, but I mean, I couldn't find any of them, but hey, maybe I'm wrong on this. But they made a tweet that was then translated and said the following: "From my sources now, the DLSS version shown behind closed doors by the Nintendo Switch 2 tech demo was 3.1 and not 3.5 as reported or pointed out by Eurogamer. Ray tracing is indeed possible, and the RAM memory I was informed of was 12 gigabytes for the consumer." Now, like I said, this does play a role in yesterday's video because of the fact that they're kind of breaking down the type of DLSS that was working and the type of RAM that this system is going to have. Ray tracing, I don't understand why it's a thing. I don't get it. Like, I guess in small increments, it's fine, but it doesn't do anything to enhance games, really. Like, and I know there's going to be some tech nerd with like a super 4090 in the comments. Ray tracing is the greatest thing ever. I'm glad you like it, but for me, it doesn't do anything. I turn it off in all my games because I prefer higher frame rates in these games. So ray tracing, I don't really care about. The version of DLSS is kind of interesting because of the fact that the more enhanced versions of DLSS obviously can do more things with this, but I don't necessarily think that negates what Eurogamer and Video Games Chronicle was talking about. But the one thing I find very interesting was the 12 gigabytes of RAM for the consumer. Now, if you know anything about the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5, those both have 16 gigabytes of RAM. And we could talk about other newer handhelds as well. Now, there's things out there like the Steam Deck, which actually has 16 gigabytes of RAM, but it's obviously used in a different way than just raw horsepower. But when you look at what the Steam Deck can do, like, yeah, it's capable of playing a lot of games with high frame rates and high resolutions. I've made videos about the Steam Deck, and then you can look at something like the Asus ROG Ally as well. But still, when you're talking about those systems, those are premium systems. The ROG Ally, the Steam Deck, like, they're not exactly what you would expect from Nintendo. I think $400 has to be the most that this system costs. And I know what you're saying. Well, RGT, the Switch sold very well at $300 and $350 for the OLED respectively, and you would be 100% correct with that. But I also just feel like they don't want to go above a $400 price point. It doesn't seem like Nintendo's mantra. It doesn't seem like what they do. And using something like 12 gigabytes of RAM, I think that's really going to increase the cost of the system. Now, obviously, since the Xbox and the PlayStation 5 were manufactured, the cost of RAM has gone down somewhat. Obviously, these were also inflated by COVID because it was hard to get chips for different systems and different motherboards and stuff like that. So it's perfectly, fine to think that maybe the price of this went down a little bit, but you have to remember, unlike Sony and unlike Microsoft, Nintendo lives and dies with their consoles and their video games. Obviously, Sony, it's a big part of them. They also have other divisions. Microsoft, video games are a very small division for them. Obviously, their money comes from stuff like Windows, but Nintendo doesn't really have any of that other sort of stuff, except, they're dipping their toes into movies and stuff like that, but it's all contingent on Nintendo and the Nintendo universe. The Nintendo Switch 2, I just don't see being sold at a loss or anything like that. So that's obviously going to play a role in what this system has under the hood of it. Because let's be real, I mean, we've seen the Nintendo Switch as we have it now really sort of push to its limits, and for the most part, I think it's handled things in a very well done manner. This is a chip from like 2015 that we're currently playing games on in 2023 that are also available on other forms of platforms as far as like current generation platforms, and the Switch has done a decent enough job. But of course, we do want something a bit more. But how much are we willing to pay for that? Me personally, I'll pay whatever. It's a write-off on my taxes so that I can show it off to you guys. But for the average consumer, I don't know. So maybe the one thing I was thinking about with this is the 12 gigs. Maybe that's not at a consumer's level. Maybe that's at a developer's level. And then things will be scaled down on the consumer levels, different Nintendo Switch system because of for the Switch 2, because that's something you commonly see where the dev kits themselves are a little bit more powerful, so they're able to see what they're actually able to do on the native hardware itself. And you always have to keep one more thing in mind. We don't know when this system is coming out. Dev kits do change, and dev kit specs can also change as well. It's not really all said and done until you're running on an official final developer piece of hardware for bringing your game to the next Nintendo Switch system. But, like I said, this could be true, this could be false. I'm not super familiar with Universal Nintendo. Maybe you guys are, and obviously, they're not an English-speaking website. I'm assuming it's some sort of Spanish, Universo. So if you're a Spanish speaker and you're familiar with them, please let me know in the comments section down below, because I'm very interested to see what sort of track record they have and what people are saying about them. But that's the latest and greatest news and specs and information. It's going to be exciting, but the main thing is, don't get your hopes up too high. Don't expect PlayStation 5 stuff, even though you're hearing about PlayStation 5 titles and Xbox Series X titles on this new system, because you already have PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X titles on your current Nintendo Switch. So that doesn't mean that it's outside of the realm of possibility for these games to come to the current system, meaning that maybe it's not that huge jump, because this really would be a huge jump. I mean, this is one of the biggest jumps. If this is all true, and it has ray tracing, and it has this DLSS, and it has 12 gigs of RAM, this is the biggest jump for Nintendo since the Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64. Quote me on that. Mark my words on that, because I will stand by that 110%, because this is big. This is big. So let me know what you think of it in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. I know another Nintendo, what are you talking about Switch 2 stuff? Because it's hot. People want to know about it. I like talking about new hardware. I'm sorry if you don't like it. I'll have other videos up. I have a secondary channel. There's a bunch of retro stuff on there. It's all good. It's all good. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.